Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. Today is Wednesday. That means that tomorrow is Thursday, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Coffee and Coaches conference call as usual. Great groups of people, great questions. Grab yourself a coffee. Please join us for the Q&A. These have been going on for quite some time, and they just keep getting better. So I'm really enjoying these. And again, please join us. Digging into today's Q&A. This is a question with Andrew. Andrew asked some great foundational questions, and I think it'll add some clarity in regards to how things are described for a lot of people, because a lot of times, and especially in the literature, this happens a great deal, where the point of reference is not clear, and therefore the descriptions then become confusing as to, well, are we looking at a situation where we have something that is internally rotated relative to something else, or do we have segments that are moving together? So we used a wide ISA pelvic representation for this to help identify some of these relative positions and orientations, and again, just to add clarity to the language and understanding. But if you also have questions about wide ISA pelvic mechanics, we're going to talk about that too. So again, it's going to be helpful on multiple levels. Thank you, Andrew, for this question. It's going to help a lot of people. If you would like to participate in a 15-minute consultation, please go to askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com. Put 15-minute consultation in the subject line so I don't delete it. We will arrange that at our mutual convenience. Everybody have an outstanding Wednesday. I will see you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., Coffee and Coaches conference call. Have a great day.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning.
So Ivan's first question really got me going on structure of the wide ISA versus the narrow ISA. And I think for the first time, I'm starting to understand like the structural differences visually, but that's why I want to run it by you, because if I'm completely wrong, like that would be helpful to know.
Okay. I'm sure you're not completely wrong.
We'll see. So I'm just like, I'm looking at I have a skeleton over here and I'm just looking at it, and I'm thinking that if you have somebody who is a wide ISA bias and they have the wider infrapubic angle, just kind of by default, if you were to compare, just like not somebody who's using compensatory strategies necessarily, but just like by design alone, the wide versus the narrow, wouldn't you expect to see that the wide ISA pelvis is a little bit more like posteriorly oriented, just at rest in standing, like because of the way that the flattening, like the way the flattening almost brings the pubis forwards? Wouldn't you expect the standing position of the wide ISA pelvis without any movements and just by structure to be slightly more posteriorly oriented, or no?
Okay. So when you're expressing this idea, you're locking a lot of structure together in your description.
Okay.
So let's make an assumption that we've got a wide ISA with full relative motion.
Okay.
They don't exist, but let's just say. So you're saying that, okay? Right. Now, let me give you perspective. If I hold this still and I do that,
yep,
same orientation. It's just relative to a point of reference, okay? Right. So a wide ISA would be biased towards that nutated sacrum, which would be a posterior orientation of the innominate, right? And so where's our perspective, right? So right. Is it doing that? No, right. It's just doing that. So the relative motion would be that this is rotating posterior relative to the sacrum, okay? In standing, are you early, middle, or late? If you're just standing upright against gravity.
Middle.
Yeah. So the bias for humans in standing is nutation and what would be a relative internal rotation of the innominate, right? So you have to look at it from perspective, because if I am if I am, if I anteriorly orient the pelvis, okay, that's locking everything together.
Right.
And I still might be like that, right?
Right.
If I'm a wide guy with anti-orientation, my relative position would still be that, okay? So if you say anti-orientation of the pelvis, I'm assuming that everything's going together from whatever representation we started with. Okay. That would be the relative motion between the innominate and the sacrum. Does that clarify your thought process?
Yes, yes. Because saying that the pelvis as a whole is anteriorly oriented is not correct. So it's what's that?
I love what you just said, because that's been like the thorn in my side for 3 decades of trying to understand when people say, oh, you have an anterior pelvic tilt, and I go, well, wait a minute. Are you talking about the pelvis as a whole? Are you talking about that and then going forward? Are you talking about that and going forward? It's like, it's very unclear when people just throw out a ballpark term like that, because it doesn't really add to the clarity of the problem. Because then if everybody has an anterior pelvic tilt, but I started from 2 potentially extreme representations, it's like what all the stuff that went into that, right? It's like, it doesn't help me with the solution, because my narrow is going to be a little bit different than my wide, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So so the maybe a better way to look at it would be like, if you have a wider pelvis, the innominates would be relatively in standing, right? Like the innominates would be relatively posteriorly oriented, which would allow the sacrum to nutate more. Right, because you're getting that relative motion that's allowing it to just go up.
Let's be really clear, relative to the sacrum.
Yes.
Like, we want to have a point of reference. We need a frame of reference to understand the relationship, because if I just said posterior orientation, what if that's my thought process? And this doesn't really happen.
Right.
But that would be my thought process if I don't understand. Right? If you just go, let's just posteriorly orient the innominate. Is that posterior orientation of the innominate?
No.
It's not. Which direction did it go, boss? Posterior orientation relative to what? Relative to what? You see, it's like, I just said posterior orientation and I did that. And you go, well, that's not posterior orientation because I didn't move the sacrum. But see, you didn't make the point that you were talking about relative to the sacrum. I was just talking about relative to the vertical.
Right.
Right. So again, what's our point of reference? If we don't have a frame of reference, we have no idea what we're talking about.
Definitely.
When I say anterior orientation of the pelvis, do you know what I mean?
You mean the whole sacrum and innominate, everything just going forward.
Exactly.
Right.
You get it?
Yeah. Okay. So, and then so I think it's starting to click what you're talking about with a wide. Let me see if I got this right. Like a wide ISA by structure is being they have it's almost like they have space backwards, and so they push forward against it. Does that basically just means that like there's I mean, I'm going to simplify it, but it's like at rest in that standing position, let's say, there's all of this room posteriorly for the sacrum to travel back if it were to, again, relative to the innominates.
Hang on. When you're saying back, it's like, I need you to clarify what you mean by back. Are you talking about like a nutated sacrum where the apex is moving relatively to the innominate, or are you talking about trying to recapture a counter-nutated representation?
Counter-nutated.
Okay. Different world.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Got it. So it's okay. So the thing that you've been saying is that the wide ISA first compensatory strategy is, since they're being pushed back, they inhale and push forward against it, something like that, or exhale and push forward against it, inhale lower rib cage. Okay. I think I'm starting to get it. Maybe.
Right. Right. It's just like I said, it's just understanding the representation, right? So they're going to use a compensatory inhale, right? Their bias is to be exhaled. That means they have to use a compensatory strategy to breathe in. When they breathe in, because of the shape of the thorax, the position of the diaphragm, the expansion is greater posteriorly in the thorax and in the pelvis, which would knock them backwards.
Yeah.
That's why they have to get pushed forward. We're back to Ivan's question from the very beginning.
Right, because they would have, again, just looking at this really oversimplified, like standing in one place model, they would have less of a lumbar lordosis, wide ISA. And so that shape would be no? Okay, never mind.
First of all, dirty word.
Okay.
Dirty word. Grace, what do you say? What do you say that was wrong?
Lordosis.
Yeah, he said lordosis, didn't he? Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. I'm just picking on you, man. No, so if you were to continue to exaggerate the nutation of the sacrum, so that's base tilting forward, apex moving relatively in the opposite direction. Okay, you understand? Okay, so I'm exaggerating that. The spine would move relative to the base going forward. So the spine would go in the other direction, which would magnify the internal rotation representation, which would be lordosis.
Right.
I got the willies there when I said, yeah. Does it, I just want to make sure that you're clear on that, because if they were to, if they had a normal inhale, they would have a reduction in that representation of the spine, right? It would be less IR'd because they're breathing in. They're using a compensatory strategy, so it doesn't move.
Say that one more time.
I didn't understand.
Say that one more time.
Oh man, I don't even know if I tend to forget things like as soon as I say them now, because I'm 55 years old. Okay, so if they had a normal breath in, okay, normal breath in, the sacral base would be moving posteriorly, and then the spine would move in opposition under those circumstances. That would reduce that inward curve, that internal rotation of the spine, right? Or the extension, lordosis, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But they don't have normal breathing because of the structural bias, right? And so that's why they start using these compensatory strategies. That's why there's a center of gravity problem. That's why they have to start to superimpose superficial musculature on top of the axial skeleton to hold position over their center of gravity so they don't fall. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So step one, understand the so-called normal mechanics, right? The average mechanics of what breathing in, breathing out looks like. Creating the structural bias on top of that and saying, okay, they're not going to be very good at this. So like a wide's not going to be very good at counter-nutating like a narrow would, and vice versa, right? Then you say, okay, well, if they can't breathe normally, so I got a guy that can't inhale like everybody else does, how's he going to do it? Oh, he's going to cheat. If he cheats, where's the expansion going to be? Now he's lost his balance. And now we're back to Ivan's question at the beginning. It's like, oh, he's falling backwards. Let's give him a little shove from behind. Okay.
Cool.
You get it?
Yeah, much better than before. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.